Alright, greetings fellow ASLers. We are going to be discussing a game that I played in round 4 of the VASL League. If you don't know what the VASL League is, which some of you may not, it is a tournament competition in multiple divisions that is run on Game Squad. Don't know why they don't use Discord. It would be far more efficient. Anyway, it's run on Game Squad. You can sign up. You're in different divisions based upon typically geographic area. But with the time span of the rounds, I think it's 3 to 4 months per round. You could be on Mars and still be able to have some sort of time to get together to conduct your game. Anyway, round 4, the other 3 rounds, I think I lost one, won one, and then forfeited one. And then this is just round 4. Jeff Howell, I believe, is my opponent. Very cool guy. If you happen to run across Jeff Howell, he's a good guy. He knows what he's doing. He moves with diligence and speed, and yeah, just a really refreshing type of guy. Anyway, the games that we selected in the league, you typically present your opponent with 3 scenarios. You know, that's standard. So he shipped over 3 scenarios to me. One was heavy armor, nah, garbage. Second, heavy armor, garbage. At least I think they were heavy armor. I remember them to be. And then the third one was extracurricular activity, which is Hungarians versus Russians. So throw the Germans out, throw all the other garbage out. Hungarians and Russians, or any minor allied and anybody else, I'll probably just play the scenario. So that's kind of what happened. There is a few pieces of armor in this one. They didn't really play too much of a role in this scenario. They can in very many scenarios, but we'll go over all that stuff later. So anyway, that's the background of the scenario. And we'll get into it. It's got a number of the roar for this scenario. Let me check out the scenario card. So the roar of this scenario is kind of different. So you've got the it says Armies of Oblivion and then Armies of Oblivion 2 on the roar record. While the Armies of Oblivion is erroneous because it was actually in Journal 7. Not sure why it's listed in Armies of Oblivion, because I cracked my Armies of Oblivion open to see what the difference is between the 2 scenarios, and it stops at 121. So 122 is in the journal. And so with that, I crack open my electronic journals, and there it is, lo and behold, bam, right there. And again, pick up the electronic journals if you don't have them. It has all the articles. Even if you have all the scenarios, you've played all the scenarios, who gives a shit? It's got all the articles that you could access quickly and easily on your iPad. I don't read on my iPhone. It's stupid doing that. iPad's just right enough. You could turn it sideways like a piece of paper. Perfect to read that stuff. I do that during lunch. Read up on those articles. You always pick up something from the articles or the series replays or what have you. Whatever is enticing to you to peruse that day. Anyway, Journal 7, not Armies of Oblivion. So don't dig in through your shit. It's in Journal 7. Problem is, it's got to be the paper version of Journal 7, because the Journal 7 in the electronic version is already updated with the card that we're going to show you today. So you say, what the hell? Because you look at the record, the Journal 7 record is, let's see, Russians 68, minor ally minors, Hungarians 46. So that's a 7, practically a 7-to-5 ratio there. Not bad, to be honest with you. If you take a 7-to-5 ratio, and if you take one of the 7's wins and makes it 7 wins and add it to the losses, and it's a 6-6. But I can see that can favor the Russians in this one. We'll get into that, and that's what this episode's about, is just discussing the scenario card and kind of the terrain and just essentially the general gist of the scenario. Essentially, i.e., you know, the tactics and reading the scenario card. So we take the Armies of Oblivion 2, which has 9 playings. And again, there's another thing that you have to realize in this. So with the 9 playings, you have 2 Russian victories so far and 7 Hungarian victories. I can guess at why that's so. There is a change. They did make a change in the scenarios. They added 2 more squads to the Hungarian side and a light machine gun. So what that did was add 8 firepower to 1 more side. And you only have 2 units that are included. So 2 mobile units that were included. I could see it making a slight difference in this one, because what it does, it allows you to get maybe throw away 2 more units to cut a route path, jump a tank in close combat, or otherwise draw fire, and then you have all the other guys behind him moving. It is a small map, and adding 2 units to a small map could make that difference depending on how you use them. Even if you use them just as a fire group, 8 firepower plus 3 against a stone building. Practically every single building on the map is stone. It's board 51. We'll get into that. And 8 firepower, 8 up 3. You're talking a 5 for morale check. Really not that big a deal. The Russians in this one could pretty much move without being in line of sight to the Hungarian player when they do their withdrawal, if they are withdrawing. So you can't say, oh, they're going to interdict them. You can essentially sculpt quite easily in this game. So the only thing I could think of is maybe they added it to, and it may have been a route difference. 2 squads in this game, and the victory conditions is based upon unbroken units. So you throw more bodies into the fray, you could win by 1, or tie guys up in close combat with 1 guy. Remember, because the Hungarians have a firepower of 3, Russians have a firepower of 4. So we'll go into the strategy in a little bit. It doesn't hurt the Hungarians to be in close combat with the Russians, simply because it will tie them up. It's a short scenario, and they have more units. So if they tie up every single Russian unit in close combat, the Hungarians will just win by default. And they don't even have to kill them. You just hold their hands, you occupy them, you wrestle them like boxers, That's all you really need to do. Anyway, let's get to the board. You get to see what we're looking at here. We did play the one from the Armies of Oblivion. So there's that. So let's go ahead down and let's take a look at the board and the scenario and my thoughts on the scenario. And we'll get to it. All right, cool. All right, well, here we are. This is the map board that we are using. This is Armies of Oblivion is where the scenario came from in its reprint. The scenario card is here. This is pretty much the board. We'll take a look at the board in a minute. But let's take a look at the history of this particular action. And so let's take a look at the card. So it's late war, December 25th, 1944 in Hungary. While the Red Army was hammering at Pest for over 6 weeks, the inhabitants of Buda were still preparing for Christmas festivities, albeit subdued ones. On Christmas Day, however, they were surprised by the sudden appearance of Soviet armored reconnaissance forces at the Janos Hospital. That's essentially the victory conditions in this game. Less than 2 miles from the Royal Palace. A company of the 1st Technical University Battalion was the first unit to clash with the Soviets in Buda. So you've got a beautiful T-34-85 here with some Russians, some exuberant Russians riding on top. Doesn't look like there's a lot of snow on the ground. Maybe they had maybe they plowed it last week. Yeah, who knows? So anyway, looks like they were attacking, and the Russians kind of overran a hospital. And this is essentially reclaiming the hospital. So the Hungarians win at game end by having more unbroken squad equivalents in building B2 than the Russians. So taking a look at those victory conditions, we're looking at having more unbroken squad equivalents. Right there. That's it. I need more guys in the building than you. So what does that mean? Taking a look at the rest of the card, the Russians just strictly looking by unbroken squad equivalents, which would include crews, surviving crews. Could you abandon the vehicle? Yeah. And some of the scenario special rules would probably dictate that if that's a necessity near the end of the game. The Russians would probably use that more effectively. Maybe, maybe not. With all that firepower in a T-34-85, I'd probably just take my chances. Excuse me. But then again, we're going to go into a description why you may or may not want to bail from your T-34-85. You have lots of firepower. The Hungarians do have anti-tank capabilities, and therefore your lifespan in that vehicle may be extremely short if given the proximity to the Hungarian units, if they get on top of you. So at that point, if you see them coming in, maybe bail and throw another body into the works. Remember, squad equivalents, and a crew is worth a half a squad. But again, they will go into the scenario special rules. So the OBs, very simple. ELR 3 up for both sides. The Hungarian ELR is actually really nice. Snipers are 3 and 2. Not that big a deal, theoretically. Setup, very simple. Setup on west of Hex Row M. Less than or equal to 4 squads. And any Smaxwa, the same old single-man counter support weapon stacked with them, may set up in building B2, which is the hospital. So the hospital is in the back corner, and we'll show you there in a second. Back corner over here. You know, one side sets up here, the other side sets up right over here, and then it's like a withdrawal back this way. So 4 units in the building is irrelevant, in my opinion. You don't really need any units in the building, simply because I believe, in my opinion, you can easily fall back to that location. There's only a couple paths that at least the enemy vehicles can take, and it might take them a while to get there. The T-34-85 is very powerful. They can blow the living crap out of these tanks. They only have 6 armor front. Even with an 8, it's not that big a deal. Side of 2, the ATRs from the Russians, frontal shots on the Ziggies. We'll just call them Ziggies. Zerlots, the SP guns, cannot destroy them unless you get super duper lucky. Yeah, you roll snake eyes and all that bullshit. Yeah. For all intents and purposes, you're immune to ATRs with frontal shots. Side shots, you are vulnerable. I think it's a 4 or 5 depending on the range. And with the terrain being a half map, you will likely be within 6 hexes. Therefore, the ATR will gain another to kill number on that. Plus, they are Russian ATRs. Russian ATRs have its kill value of 6 instead of the normal, well, quote, normal 5 as everyone else. So a 6 ATR kill with a +1 range on a side shot is a solid 5. Solid 5. You're either going to shock them or immobilize them with that shot. 5's easy to roll. Piece of cake to roll a 5. 9 concealments. Scenario special rule might deal with those. Not that big a deal here. Simply because you still have to move. You have 16 units. You don't really care where the Russians are. They're going to fire at you and they're going to break you. So the concealments really, in my opinion, don't do anything but have the attacks. Again, you're just going to body bump them anyway. Hopefully you won't roll up onto giant stacks, which the Russians cannot really afford to do. The Russians cannot afford to stack tons of guys together. Why do you say that, Stu? What the hell are you talking about? You have no clue what's going on. Well, again, look at your victory conditions. You do not want to stack a lot of dudes in one hex, simply because if you break, and if he surrounds you with the extremely large number of squads, you're going to lose quite a bit, 20 to 30% of your force because you gacked a couple rolls. You know, normal morale check pops up and you roll frickin' 8s and 9s. Easily do. 8s and 9s are easy to roll. And you just boom, 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 one after the other. 9, 8, 8. When you're 8 minus 1, is shooting at something, and all you break, and he surrounds you with a couple half squads and a tank, and you just disintegrate. It happens that 20% of your force gone immediately. So likely you're not going to have giant stacks together. You're going to have supporting troops for the Russians, because you got to cover these 3-4-7s approaching. Leader quality, we got 3 for the Russians. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. I'm not sure what happened. Back in the past, it used to be a 5-to-7 leader ratio. You know, 1 leader for every 5 to 7 squads. Now it's like they're German quality, and then you got 1 leader for every other squad. I'm not so sure I really like that theme along the Russian lines. I like having 2 leaders for 10 squads, because that means you need to value these guys far more. It minimizes the ability of them performing a human wave when they're on the attack. They are on the defense here. It's unlikely that the Russians will do a human wave. So that's not an issue here. They practically just need these guys able to rally units in case the Hungarians get lucky. Hungarians 4 leaders to 16 squads. That's a 4-to-1 or 1-to-4 ratio, however you want to look at it. So not bad. It could be worse. 5 light machine guns. Essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking 5 different stacks of 2 squads here, which is 10 squads. And you're going to be putting a machine gun, put your 5 machine guns with those guys to make 8 firepower stacks. 8 firepower plus 3 is doable. A 6 is a pin task check if you pin your enemy units because you outnumber them. If these 5 stacks pins 5 stacks of Russian units, then the 6 squads remaining are going to run past those units or get close, jump them in close combat, what have you. So you do have the extra squads and the leaders, mind you, and the leaders, 2 7-0s are the ones going to be moving bodies to perform those sort of actions. So essentially you got 2 8+2 shots, 4 or 3 8+3 shots, and then the other ones they can move. So looking at your tanks, look at the difference between these two here. Tell me what the major difference is here. Machine guns. These Zephyrs, or whatever they're called, I'm going to call them Zephyrs. These bad boys have no machine guns. We are in an urban setting. Let me scroll back. We're in an urban setting. Let me remove our board here. Essentially, we're going to be fighting on this half. Urban setting, no machine guns. SP gun, if you move, you're never going to hit an infantry unit in a building. So you have to sit and fire, which means the Russians are just going to move back, skulk, what have you, or just move to a different hex and skulk back and move to a different hex. So these units are not going to be hunting down infantry per se. No machine guns means you're not going to be really covering any avenues of approach. We could park a tank here. You know, we could park a tank here and, like, quote, cover that way. You've got a main armament. To be honest with you, that's the job of a machine gun on your vehicle. So can it cover? Yeah. Can you hit somebody with your big 105? Absolutely. Well, they're going to be dashing. There's going to be +2 to hit. So you're going to need a 5 to hit them on your big 105 gun. Their purpose is strictly something else. And we're going to go in the scenario special rules, and it will determine, it will actually tell you what the purpose of these vehicles are. So let's take a look at the scenario special rules. Oops, right down here. And we can get to it here. Let's zoom in here. So, first scenario special rule. EC or wet with no wind at start. The wind is a factor. The Hungarians won't win, most likely. But the EC or wet are completely erroneous in this scenario. Even if the EC are dry, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Because what's going to be starting fires? There's no fires. There's no entrenchments going on. There's nowhere you can entrench on this map except for like maybe two or three hexes, and that's on the edge. So everything's paved. Everything's stone buildings or wooden buildings. EC wet. If you could tell me what those EC wet are for, I'll send you a lollipop. But there's no purpose here. You say, hey, Stu, what about tanks burning into a building? Tanks get blown up. They catch fire. You got those 85s, the 105s. You might get a snake eyes. Boom, it explodes. Doesn't matter. EC do not apply to spreading fire with a building, whether it's an adjacent hex going to it or otherwise. It simply states buildings do not apply the EC modifier. No when it starts. So I'm not sure what the wet is. Maybe it's just a historical thing. At that point, just leave it off. Who cares? And then the other thing here, second part of that, which is the most important part, every hex of building B2 has an inherent stairwell. B2 is back here. This is your hospital. This is your victory location hex right here. That's what we're looking for. So every single hex of that building has an inherent stairwell and a rooftop location. I'm not sure why it's necessary to specify each one as an inherent stairwell. So these would be inherent stairwells here. You have one here, here, and here. I really don't think it needs to mention that, simply because the next part of the scenario special rule kind of throws that one out the door. So rooftop location, we'll go into why it has a rooftop location at the end of this special rule. All buildings with a printed stairwell. Does this building have a printed stairwell? Yes. Does this building have a printed stairwell? No. Printed? Yes. Printed? Yes. Printed? No. Pretty simple, right? Big dots, little dots. Printed stairwells are two-story houses. Okay? So therefore, this is a two-story house. It has a ground level and a first level. Doesn't have a second level because they're two-story houses because they have printed stairwells. Therefore, if you're a two-story house, you have inherent stairwells and throughout the whole thing, like J1, K1. You would have inherent stairwells if this was a normal building, right? So I'm not sure why it says all of them have inherent. It's irrelevant because the second part of the scenario special rule essentially gives it a second level. All other buildings have a ground level only. So D4, E4, ground level, ground level, ground level. This is hexes. These are all ground. This is a ground level one over here. These have two levels. So essentially, the rest of the buildings, which are in this scenario, are pretty much row houses. As you can see here, row house, row house, row house, row house. This one is just standard building. So all these are ground level buildings except for these two in the middle, which won't make that much of a difference. It could, but, and again, not sure why. If you could explain why the building in the back has to have stairwells, identifying inherent stairwells, it's irrelevant because that building is a two-level building anyway by the second part of the rule. But they do have rooftops. Remember, rooftops. So why would it have a rooftop? Who cares, Stu? It's got a rooftop. I never go on there. It'll only have height advantage +1. You're never going to sit up on the second rooftop because it really doesn't give you a height advantage over these buildings in the village. I think it's an erroneous rule. It's a bullshit rule, whatever. I think it's actually a brilliant move on this particular designer. I think Chris Olden has designed the scenario. Hopefully, I don't know if it came around in the playtest section, but the rooftop essentially allows a little bit more of a chance for the Russian to come back or the Hungarian. Why do you say that, Stu? When you're fighting over this building here, when these guys break, let's say we got stacks of units in here. You get a whole shitload of guys in here. Guys are breaking. They got nowhere to route. They can't route to D3 because they're going to get interdicted from somebody in E2, and they're just going to surrender or failure out or what have you. Where are they going to go? Well, because this building has a first level, they can route to the first level. And let's say the Russians or the Hungarians pursue. The enemy pursues them to the first level, and he gets screwed over again. Then he could route to the rooftop level. So it allows like a double route, or at least 2 hexes, to get the hell out of dodge, so he can't really remain adjacent to an enemy unit. And it will allow him a slight possibility to self-rally or rally if it has a leader later on in the next turn, next rally phase, what have you. So I think that's a brilliant use of the rooftop rule, because what it does is expands that building without adding an additional building level. What do I mean by that? It says, Stu, you're not making any sense. Well, the victory conditions deal with occupation of the building B2. So most of these scenarios, Commissar's house and also the bullshit, if this was a normal 2.5 level building, you would have 18 locations in here. That sucks. One, if the Hungarians get in here with any force, they just run and hide. You're never going to dig them out. Plus, you see that the Russians do not have a last turn. So once the Hungarians go in there, they simply win. You make it to the base, you pass a finish line. Yay, I win. I don't care if you're hunting my guys down because I just run around the building like a mouse. So that alleviates, that subtracts, that takes away that top level of running and hiding because you stay within the building. But the rooftop keeps essentially that same level in play by giving you a spot to run to possibly rally. Okay? So it still has 18 locations in this building, but only 12 of them matter for victory conditions. The other 6 can be used accordingly, whether you want to move around the building or what have you. It allows you to do that. Matter of fact, mobility is another one. Move up to the roof, move over to the other side, come back down, get behind them, whatever the case may be. It can be used for both. I like to think of routing first, of where my guys can go, to where they can be safe so they can't get, bitch slapped in the next week by surrendering. And that's a strategy that you can use in this game. And we'll go with that when the actual replay starts. So, wonderful thing, killing is NA. I don't really give a crap. Burning buildings in here would be trollish. Scenario Special Rule 2. Broken side morale of all Hungarian multi-man counters. Multi-man counters is 2 higher than printed. Not 1. Not the same. But 2 higher than printed. So I think the backside of these 347s is a 6. So their broken morale is like an 8. So they're like American squads. What does that mean? Who gives a shit, Stu? If they break, they break. They're not enough leaders, whatever. They will come back very fast in this game. Why do we need these units to come back very fast in this game? Because they're 347s. They got garbage shit for firepower. Again, you're looking at 8 firepower most of the time. There are a few situations where you combine multi-hex, because as you see, once you start approaching the background, you've got row houses. You've got a row house, row house, row house, row house. They're all ground level. You have to be in open ground to make a fire group with anybody in a row house. So is that going to happen? Could. I'm not saying it's not, but it could. Most likely they're going to get shot to hell. But they could be there. But unlikely. So he wants to break units. He doesn't need to kill your units. He just needs to slow you down. So when he breaks your units, Scenario Special Rule Set 2 says, fine, the Hungarian can still be aggressive because his broken morale level is too higher than what's printed. So therefore, the Hungarians can be a little bit more aggressive than normal. Even their half squads. I think their half squad broken morale level is like some ungodly number like 4. So this makes them semi-respectable and increases it up to 6. That's rallyable. In a building with a leadership modifier, you're looking at, what's that, 8? That's respectable instead of a 6. So even the half squads are coming back. So Hungarian heat of battle nationality dice roll modifier is 0. Why? They're in Hungary, most likely. Hungarian units will not surrender due to heat of battle result. Why? They're in their homeland. They go berserk instead. Makes sense, right? Scenario special rule 2 makes complete sense in this, by all means of the historical, I guess, annals of the Hungarian army. Hungarians are elite. Now, 35% of your ASLers will screw this up, and probably 90% of your newer players will screw this up. What does this mean? Hey, Stu, my guys are elite. They get to drop demo charges and all this other bullshit. Nope. It only matters to your vehicles. Read C8.2 talks about ammo supply and increases your essentially increase your ammo supply by 1. It might do other crap. Go read the rule. You'll check it out. Anytime your scenario special rules have rule references, go read them, please. Please go read them. That's why they have references here. 8.2, 23.8, 23.22. They're right next to one another. These guys are in the same spot. 25.11, very close. 8.2, another section. E2.4, another section. Right? You got to do some reading. You got 5 sections, your minimum 5 sections you're looking up in this one. And 6 as well. You're going to be looking up a minimum of 6. What's the sixth? What's that 6th section? You let me know what that 6th section that you need to be looking up. Not Chapter H. Chapter H is a gimme. All right? That 6th section is going to be nationality characteristics. You need to look up nationality characteristics in this game or you will lose. Some of the losses by the Hungarians, I'm sure, are due to the players not looking up the nationality characteristics of these bad boys right here. So you look up the Hungarians and you write it down there of what they might need, what makes them distinct in this specific scenario, which may or may not give them an advantage. So you write down the weird thing that applies to the Hungarians that will be useful in this scenario. Excuse me. Civilian interrogation. So I like rule number 2. What that does is allows the attacker, really shitty Axis miners, to be actually have value in a conflict, keeps them alive, keeps them alert, keeps them rallying, keeps them in the battle. Even though they have low firepower, you don't need firepower in this one, people. You don't need firepower. Why? Why don't you need firepower? Why? I don't need to kill them, Stu. I got tons of fire. I got 8. You said 8 firepower things. We don't give a shit. Hungarians wouldn't game in by having more unbroken squad equivalents in the building. We don't have to shoot at anything. The Hungarians do not have to fire a shot. Not one IFT shot needs to be conducted by the Hungarians. And if the Russians had a sniper value of 5, 6, or 7, I am not shooting my Hungarians in this one. Period. Simply because +3 stone buildings are not conducive to getting normal morale checks on 8 firepower, like we discussed previously. The limitations of getting fire groups is numerous. So that's not going to happen. I'm not even taking those shots. I'm just trying to jump them in close combat at that point. Why? Why would you do that, Stu? Why would you not take shots and jump them in close combat? Well, I could be in the open. I could keep my guys in the open. And when they break, what happens when they break? I rally them a whole hell lot faster. Okay? I simply rally them faster. I don't care if they break. Then we just kind of get up and go about our business. Civilian interrogation is in effect. The Hungarians are in a friendly country, Russians in a hostile. What does that mean? Synopsis of that: wind change dice roll. If the Russians roll a 3, they get information. Essentially, you lose concealment for the most part. Hungarians roll a 4 since they're in a friendly country. The Russians lose concealment. Guess what? Russians have dummies, or potentially have dummies in this one, based upon your OB. Will that make a difference in the game? Highly unlikely. You have 16 units, you're going to be power bumping squads left and right. Will it help? Yeah, maybe. It might help for like a 105 artillery piece honed in on something. Area target type. I'm not worried about that. Last one, no AFV may set up or enter building B2, which is the hospital. I like that. You don't do some bullshit sleaze freeze with the Hungarian vehicles on either side. There's no bullshit sleaze freeze allowed in the building here. Strangers in a Strange Land does the same thing. No bullshit sleaze freeze for the German paratroopers versus the French in that one. Popular scenario, go play it. When you play this one, go back and play that one. Now, comparing the two scenarios, they're kind of the same scenario, to be honest with you. You have a little bit more armor. This one's obviously late war. The other one's a little bit more early war. But the amount of support weapons, the amount of firepower, the amount of unknown factors is about the same. Scenario special rules are pretty nice. Very clean games on both ends. I like the Strangers in a Strange Land far superior to this one. I would play that one far more times than this one, even though you kind of got to do a little rat chase in that one. Simply because I really don't like the approach in this scenario. This could be an extremely dog scenario if you really wanted to get at it. Because you can only come from this way or that way. You can't come from the back side. You can't come from over here. You can't come from over there. You've got really only two ways of getting to the building. And so what does that mean? That means our Ruskies set up all of his 10 squads back here with the heavy firepower, wait till you enter the building, and blast the living shit out of you. 16 charts minimum. 16 to 20 charts, only leaving 8 residual firepower, and then we subsequent versus fire at another 8 firepower. It's rough to survive that. And then again, you got to jump them in close combat. Although the close combat's okay, it might pin them down. They still have a slight advantage if they have like 2 squads, 1-to-1. I mean, even if it's a 1-to-1, they have a slight advantage. But you just need to pin them down. They have a 5 for a casualty reduction. You have a 4. That's kind of a rough roll to do. You don't want to send your leaders into close combat very often. It's not worth it. At that point, you're risking a leader for an even shot at a 447. I will take that exchange every single day of the week. I will lose a squad for you losing a squad and a leader every single day in the week. I want you to jump me in close combat. Bring it on. Bring it on. I'm killing one of your leaders and you're jacked up. You need units, unbroken units in this game. Throwing your leaders away in such a move is very, very dangerous. It's not, in my opinion, not a wise move. But it's your guy. Do what you wish with it. I'm just saying, you might need him to rally. Last turn of the game, throw him in there. Absolutely. Throw him in there. Right? So, again, this could be an extremely dog scenario based upon how the Russians can set up. And again, if they fall back and get to this area where they could set up here, where they fall back and get right there, not fun. It's a strategy. It's something you can do, something you should be doing as the Russians, right? But maybe not. And again, the other thing the Russians could do, they could set up in the back right here, and guess what? You could have 4 squads in this building. Well, actually, you could just set the squads up right here and have them entrench all day. Have them entrench two turns in a row. You'd have some... you'd have spots that you could route to. If you put an entrenchment here, an entrenchment here, and another entrenchment here, you do that route there. So your units won't be eliminated for failure to route or surrendering or whatever. That would be a viable strategy for maybe 2 squads to do. Maybe, maybe not. You could put dummies up in the front to give them some time. You could think about doing that. Most players don't. But you could think about doing that. Not a bad idea. So there's that. You could also put an entrenchment right here on the side for point blank fire. He won't be able to see you from anywhere but an adjacent hex. So there's that. Again, nationality characteristics. So again, you're not going to have any fires in this one. So that's it. So what your tanks are for are Hungarians are elite. Gives you the clue. Increases your expendable ammo. Your expendable ammo, looking on the back side of this tank, this means smoke. It has smoke and smoke dischargers, of which you need to use throughout the game. What do you have? Lots of open roads. Let's go red. You've got this giant road here, which all he has to do is set a tank on this end. He's shooting infantry. He does have HMGs, probably not going to leave on the road. You have a road here that you probably have to cross. You got a road here that might be crossed. You got a road here, and you've got this road in the back that you might need to be crossing. Okay, lots of roads. That's where the Russian LMGs can come in handy. Nice little LMG right here. Shoots a nice little fire lane down here. Another LMG back here. This is later in the game. Shoots another nice little fire lane there. If the HMG's here, shoots the fire lane the other side. So something to look forward to on that. LMGs or fire lanes are not fun. You're looking at a 1 - 2. What do you need for a morale check on the 1 column when you subtract 2? You need a 6 for a morale check. You need a 7 for a pin check. He's going to be rolling 7s most of the time. If you pin, you're not getting into the building and you're staying in the open. When you stay in the open, you're going to be annihilated. Okay, so fire lanes are a slight potential here. Now again, looking at the Hungarians, look what they have. If those Hungarians obtain those same positions behind the Russians, he has 5 LMGs in which to place fire lanes versus the LMG fire lane placement by the Russians of 2. So the Hungarian has a much better availability of placing a fire lane here or there. 1 - 2 is a free shot. The Russians do not have smoke making capabilities, so they are not going to be having that clean run across the road. The Hungarians need to make effective use of smoke to be able to advance quite aggressively in this one here. And again, 4 SP guns. You're dropping a smoke here, smoke here, smoke here, and maybe a smoke in the lane in case he's got a tank up here firing down this way. All right, that covers your approach for the most part. You could be aggressive because your morale levels are much higher on the broken side, and you can go kick the Russians' ass. Be aggressive with the Hungarians. Not reckless, but aggressive, and you'll do just fine. All right, so the key, I'll go drop back to what we have in the nationality characteristics of the Hungarians. The number one thing that the Hungarians have that you need to realize in this scenario are the availability of Panzerfausts. Panzerfausts, Panzerfausts, Panzerfausts. Why? Because of these little bastards right here. This is essentially 3 squads. You have a 16 firepower, a 2 firepower, and a 4 firepower. Plus this thing destroys your tanks. Nothing else is really a harm to your tanks. You just keep facing them and you're fine. These are going to destroy your tanks quite easily. And if they're gone, they can cover the open ground hexes a far more with the 2 and 4 firepower machine guns. And the 85 is just a free shot. Just a free shot. So very dangerous, very fast, good armor. You've got nothing to penetrate their armor but Panzerfausts. Luckily for you as the Hungarian, wherever they put a tank, you can probably get a guy within 2 hexes. He puts a tank here. Hell, you can move a guy here, move a guy on the backside, move a guy next to him, here, over here in E7, firing that way. You can get a guy within 2 hexes, and that's the range of the Panzerfaust is 2 hexes in 1944. So, very large area on which you can approach the T-34s and try to kill them that way. All right. So with that, when you're reviewing your scenarios, do you have to go in this much detail? Absolutely not. As you get better at doing the scenarios and asking yourselves, okay, what's an unbroken squad equivalent? What is that going to matter in here? Again, does that make a difference with the Russians? No. If the Hungarians, with their heat of battle nationality dice roll modifier of 0, right? Let's say we have a leader creation on the Hungarian side. Does that change anything that the Hungarians can do for endgame victory? What do you think? How many leaders do we have? We have 4 leaders. If we were to get another single man counter, that would be a half squad equivalent. So if you jammed all your leaders and single man counters into that building, 5 of them will comprise a half squad capacity. So that would be a half squad equivalent. Okay, that might be able to make a difference. So if you happen to get a leader and none of your leaders are dead, or single man counter rather, keep that in mind, that that still might be a part of the victory conditions, and your opponent may actually ignore that. Let's say you've got units to move and you're a half squad behind in the victory. Move all your leaders first, because he's going to say, that has no impact on the victory conditions. I'm not going to fire on him. So he gets in the building. The A-1 gets in the building. The 270 sneaker on the back. The 149 jumps in as well. And then you move the half squad up for your 347. He takes a shot at that guy. He breaks, but you already have a half squad in the building. And you tell him at the end of the game that he goes, oh, shit. So that's what you want to do. You want the aw shit moments. Okay? So tanks, smoke generators, that's it pretty much. Smoke discharger, smoke, he can defensive fire, smoke. Just keep firing smoke as much as you can. And again, Hungarians are elite is the clue that we're looking for. Who cares if the APCR 4 to APCR 5? Who gives a shit? You know, you need to roll super low. Smoke 7 to smoke 8, big difference. Big difference. All right. Thanks for tuning in for this one here, guys. I will have the replay up and going soon. This is just an introduction to the scenario, going over the card, analyzing the card. Obviously, you shouldn't take this long to analyze it, but this is what you need to do when planning your defense and planning your offense, or anticipating an offensive or defensive move based upon what the enemy's capabilities are in this scenario. I hadn't actually thought about the entrenchments behind the building, but that might be a, one squad doing that just to keep your guys maybe alive for a half a turn to maybe get back in the building. It could make the difference. Remember, by turn 4, he's going to be in the building defending it. So the entrenchments are back there just so units don't get eliminated for FTR or surrendered for that matter. All right. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you, patrons, for being there and sticking with this throughout the this lengthy process. And hopefully we'll get some more scenarios out for you guys. There's a number of war scenarios I would like to go over. We will cover those perhaps at a later time. All right. So get ready for extracurricular activity. If you've got time, play this through, and then you can watch my replay on how good or bad I play the game. And you say, Stu's an idiot. Why do I watch his videos? I don't know. That's a question we all have to ask ourselves. So anyway, gentlemen, have a good time. And what are you going to do? Now you're going to go play some ASL.